Hello, second graders. This is Miss Monsivais, and today we're going to be learning about writing math word problems. Now, when you are writing a math word problem, it's important to follow these steps. Number 1, you need to decide if your word problem will be an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division story. Number 2, you need to choose two numbers you will use. Number 3, you need to write at least two statements and one question. Now, what I mean by statements is you need to write at least two sentences and one question. Number 4, make sure your question uses the correct keywords. If you remember, throughout the year, we talked about keywords used in math word problems. We talked about when we have addition math word problems, we will see words such as more, in all, altogether, total, sum, plus. And when we had subtraction math word problems, we could see words such as difference, fewer than, less, remain, take away, or how many more. Now, we didn't talk a lot about multiplication, but we did learn a little bit of repeated addition. And when we see multiplication word problems, we're going to see words such as every, each group, increase by, times, double, multiplied by. And when we see division word problems, words will be used such as each group, equal parts, separated, cut up, or shared equally. Now, one of the steps to follow is to use keywords in your word problems. So if you're going to pick an addition or a subtraction word problem, you can go to this list and you can pick some of the words that you want to use in your word problem. Now, let's look at some examples of word problems. This first example says, my mother bought 12 presents. She wrapped 7 presents. How many presents does she have left to wrap? Now, let's see if they followed the steps that I showed you earlier. Let's see, they should have written two statements or two sentences and used a question. So did they? They used the first sentence is right here. My mother bought 12 presents. She wrapped 7 presents. That's the second sentence. And they used a question. How many presents does she have left to wrap? Did they use two numbers? Did they use two numbers? Yes, they did. They used two numbers. And did they use keywords in their word problem? Let's see. How many presents does she have left to wrap? Well, they used the word left. And we've learned this year that when we see the word left in our word problems, that means we're going to what, boys and girls? Yes, we're going to subtract. So remember, we have to use these steps when we practice writing word problems. Let's look at another example. Alan has 14 quarters. His dad gave him 7 more quarters. How many quarters does Alan have in all? Let's see if they followed all of the steps when writing a word problem. Did they write two sentences? Let's see, one sentence, two sentences. And did they write a question? Yes, they did. They wrote a question. How many quarters does Alan have in all? Now, did this person write or use two numbers? Did they use two numbers in their word problem? Yes, they did. They used 14 and they used 7. Did they use keywords? And the keywords, if we've noticed, they've been used in the question, right? So did they use keywords? How many quarters does Alan have in all? Did they, boys and girls? They did. They used in all. In all, we've learned that when we see that word, those two words, we're going to, what are we going to do? We're going to add. Okay, so now Miss Monsivais is going to practice writing her own word problem. by following the steps. So I'm going to follow the first step. The first step is that I need to decide if my word problem will be an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division story. I think that I want my problem to be a subtraction problem. Okay, so I've decided. I've done step 1. Step 2, I need to choose 2 numbers that I'm going to use. I think I want to use number 28 and number 16. So I've done step 2. Now let's go to step 3. I need to write at least 2 statements or sentences and 1 question. So I need to write 2 sentences and 1 question. Okay, so my first sentence is going to say, it's going to say, Miss Monsiváis has 28 soccer balls. That's my first sentence. Now my second sentence is, she sells 16 soccer balls. That's my second sentence. Now I need to ask my question. What am I going to ask? I'm going to ask, how many soccer balls does Miss Monsiváis have left to sell? And there's my question, and I also had to make sure that I use keywords in there. What's the key word I use, boys and girls? Left, right? Left. So I've done step 3, and I have to make sure that I use the correct keywords. I wanted people to subtract, so the keyword that I had to use was left. Remember the list I showed you of keywords? Now I have to solve my word problem. I need to find the answer for my teacher. So 28, and I'm going to subtract because my keyword that I used was left. And remember, when I planned this, I wanted to have a subtraction problem. That's why I used the word left. So 28 minus 16. Let's subtract. 8 minus 6 is what, boys and girls? Right, it's 2. And 2 minus 1 is what? It's 1. So I have just solved my problem, my word problem. My answer is 12. And just like Ms. Monsiváis did, your task is to write your own word problem and solve it. Don't forget to solve it. Follow the list of steps I showed you to write your word problem. Don't forget to use your keywords. Take a picture and send it to your teacher.